Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I am joined today by a very good friend of mine, Korrine Claxton of Korrine C Makeup Artist and Esthetician. And Korrine, why don't you say hi and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you guys do?
Hi, Reed. So I am a makeup artist based out of Bonnie Lake, Washington. I freelance all over the Pacific Northwest. I work with a hairstylist so we can provide hair and makeup on site. We're two separate businesses, but we've been working together for 5 seasons, and she's kind of my go-to hairstylist. Her name's Brenda. And other than that, that's basically kind of what we do.
And I think, Korrine, when I first launched the podcast and I set everything out, I think you were one of the first people that reached out and said, I want to be a part of this. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think that shows kind of your devotion to, I think you were the first person. And then I just feel so bad. It's been so long. It's taken this.
No, kids being sick and life happens. So, my brother got into his accident. So we've just been kind of taking care of family. So I'm really excited to be here and getting a chance to kind of share what goes on during the morning of the weddings and bridal hair and makeup, because I think that a lot of people don't really know the ins and outs of what goes into the makeup and hair side of your wedding day. So,
no, I don't think so at all.
Yeah.
And Korrine and I actually met, we were talking a couple years ago at a stylized shoot that we did, which is, kind of where you set up like a fake wedding to showcase, and it was a new venue out in Redmond, and it was so funny. I was asking you off camera, do we know Ray, who was the male model for that? And it was so funny because after we did that thing, I had just gotten on Instagram and I had 5 people, it was like,
you always get followers after a stylized shoot.
Yeah. So. And I was paying attention, I was really able to pay attention to who, I got 4 likes on this or whatever. And this user, Ray Bebe, would like every single one of my posts. And I couldn't figure out, and I was talking with Jeff, and Jeff was at the stylized shoot, and I was like, who is this guy? And I would post something and I'd be like, Ray Bebe is liking it. And Jeff, that whole summer, we would every time oh, did Ray like it? Did Ray like it? And it took us 6 months to realize that it was Ray from the stylized shoot. So I thought I was getting this notoriety. It turns out it was just a friend that I had met that I didn't know.
Oh, that is funny.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of what you guys do. Like you said, the ins and outs. And I think that when people think of hair and makeup, maybe they don't know how in depth it needs to go. Or talk to me about kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think that the biggest part of our industry is education. And I think continuing education and what you need to have to know what you're doing for makeup and hair is super important. So you want to make sure that you're working with a licensed cosmetologist, somebody who has gone to school for hair and has gotten licensed from the state of Washington to do hair is super important. Makeup, you don't necessarily need to have that. I have my aesthetics license, which I went through school at Clover Park to do skincare. So I specialize in facials, waxing, peels, all of that stuff that goes into prepping your face for your wedding day, which I think is super important. And then I also do continuing education with other artists in the area to kind of keep up on my color theory and keep up on the new trends that are, coming out. I mean, makeup is always changing, and to keep up on my product knowledge. So I think that first and foremost, that is the first thing that a bride needs to look for is, do they have the education to back them up? Are they licensed with the state of Washington? Do they have all their business licensing to work? And are they insured? So for me, that's first and foremost. If you don't have those things, then you probably shouldn't be practicing on people, because it's super important you could mess up, you can get an allergic reaction. We're working with products. We're not working with, just picking up a camera and, taking pictures. We're working on people's skin. So I think you need to have the knowledge to back that up. So first and foremost, I think that's most important. And then what I do with my brides specifically is once they book, we meet for a consultation and we go over what the details of their wedding is going to be. So I like to know, is it going to be rustic? Is it going to be bohemian? Are you going to be wearing your hair down, curls? What's your dress look like? Because all of those details are super important to create a customized look for each bride. And every bride is going to be the same. So after that, we then set up a Pinterest board, and Pinterest is super important. It's a great tool to have. I do more natural makeup, so I'm not really a total transformation makeup artist. I tend to just want to bring out my bride's natural beauty. So if I start seeing pins that kind of have like winged eyeliner, super dramatic lips, then I'll kind of be like, are we really on the same page? And then we meet for a trial run, and trial runs are about 2 hours. And we go through and we do the whole look for the wedding party. And if they want to make any changes for the day of, then we can make those changes at the trial run. I take pictures, I write down everything, make sure that the products, stayed on their face for a long time. And then the wedding day happens. So that's just what I do just to get to the wedding day. So it's about a 6-hour process, working with me prior to just doing the trial run and the wedding day. So
yeah, but I think that's, so important because, and I've talked with you, I think in the past about like, I see so many posts online and, inquiries on like the wedding community and stuff like, my makeup person canceled or, somebody flaked out or they were supposed to show. And it's because they're not, people are finding, friends or somebody that like does it on the side or I do it, once a year. And, when it's somebody that has a business that's licensed and insured, right? I mean, it's that trustworthiness.
And you take it seriously. I take my job very seriously. I went through aesthetic school because I wanted to become a better makeup artist. How I got my start was working with a photographer. I was doing headshots for an agency. And so I realized that's not like a full-time paying gig. That's only every once in a while. And so I went into skincare, and in aesthetic school, we learned color theory. We learned face shapes. We learned how to highlight and contour to match people's face shapes, not just, painting by numbers. And so I think that's very important to have the education and to, make sure that you are licensed and insured and you're not just doing it as a hobby, because you are touching people's faces. And you have to make sure that you know what you're doing, because anything can happen.
So when you talk about like face shaping and things like that, so you can like look at somebody's face and kind of
see where they need to have so highlighting means that I'm going to be bringing your features forward. So usually when I highlight somebody's face, I want to highlight where like the sun is going to naturally hit. So I do that with like a little bit of bronzer just on the cheeks. I do a little bit of lightening with like a little bit of a lighter foundation color, and then I can contour with a little bit of a darker foundation color. So the trend right now is to just apply wherever they want to, like on their face. So a lot of makeup artists will just apply like, oh, I do it here, so I'm going to do it on my other clients here, on my cheekbones and stuff. I'm realizing that people can't see what I'm doing.
That's okay. I think you're doing a good job explaining it.
And so I want to look at somebody's features and I want to bring out their best features. So, if that's me talking to my clients and saying, what do you like about your face? What don't you like about your face? What is something that, do you like your eye color? Let's bring out your eyes, because certain colors, like if you have blue eyes, then you're going to want to tend to go to like the more purples and greens and bring your eye color out that way. So there's just a lot. That's where color theory comes in, because color theory is super important when I do my job. So, and it's not just matching a foundation color, it's matching the undertones to a person's face color, so there's a lot to it.
But, but it's not a one size fits all kind of thing is what you're saying, though, that I think some people or especially like where you do like a trial run and the photos and going through that like, I mean, I'm sure you could just show up and do somebody's makeup, but you wouldn't prefer, a lot more should go into that than just, oh, I need somebody next Tuesday to do.
Exactly. So, and when, especially like if I'm doing boudoir, or if I'm working with clients that are getting like senior pictures done, then I do just go to their house and just work with them once and then we're done. But with brides, I want to know what I'm doing the wedding day, because it makes the wedding day morning go so much more smoothly, because I already have the products listed that I used. I already know what works. We've already talked and said, hey, did your foundation hold up? Do we need to add a little bit more airbrush? Do we need add a little bit more setting powder, setting spray? So I have all of that information before the wedding day. So, and I tend to make sure that my weddings the morning of run super smoothly, and I don't want to be sitting there and messing with products and trying to figure out what's going to work. Bridesmaids, it's a little different because we don't get to work with them prior to, but we can still, make a really pretty palette based off of what we've talked with the bride about.
Well, and like logistically, I mean, that's difficult, to coordinate that. But, and like you said, like, if you're doing like a senior portrait, like you could have an extra 10 minutes if you need to, like, it's not this, we're like a wedding day, you've got 45 minutes or like.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, as a videographer, and I know I speak for photographers as well, like that is one of the most challenging parts of the day is, making sure all that's done on time.
Yes.
Because, like we had a bride where, we ended up not like really, they ended up wanting to like reschedule with their photographer later to do portraits another day because we didn't have enough time.
Oh my gosh.
They felt like day of, because, the hair took an hour or too long, and then the makeup took, and then it was like, it pushes everything all day. And then, if we're there for 8 hours and your makeup goes an hour over 30 minutes, I mean, you need to be like on the ball. Right?
Yeah. So, and how I solve that problem is I create a timeline with my bride a month prior to working with them. So I get the list of bridesmaids. I figure out if I need to bring on extra people. If I do, that makes the wedding day, because my bridal parties are about 12 people on average. So I usually am working with 4 artists plus an assistant. So in order to do that, I need to have a very coordinated timeline. And it also helps because we go on site. So brides are not coming to us, we go to them, which I think is super helpful. I've worked with bridal parties where they're getting their hair done at a salon, and working with a salon who isn't really specializing in bridal. They're dealing with other clients. They're not solely focused on the bride and their bridal party. And they usually are running behind. So I prefer my brides to work with my team because we've worked together for about 5 seasons and we can get you guys done. And, we tend to stay with the bride for an hour each, and then the bridesmaids are 45 minutes. And we usually are working starting at like 6 a.m. But yeah, we usually run on time.
Well, it's tough because, even lately, there's weddings I've shot where it's like they don't have that grid, kind of that plan, and they'll be like, oh, who else needs it? Or, or like they'll be like, well, my mom really needs some, and Aunt Betty really needs some, and could we do this? And, and then it's like, or, we've had them where like even they're like, well, they're not like, the bride's like, well, should I start right now? And they're like, well, we can wait. I'm like, no, like, don't, like, I would much rather have the bride be able to relax for 5 minutes with their makeup done than to be half an hour behind because it wasn't started.
And when I know my makeup will last, I know from brides who, past experience, and they're like, oh man, it lasted the whole morning until 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. at night. And so when I get a bride who's like, well, will it really last? I'm like, yes, it will. And I provide a touch-up kit to get you through the day. I was like, but when I coordinate my timelines, I go based on the bridesmaids' names. So a lot of makeup artists, they'll just put like bridesmaid 1, bridesmaid 2, bridesmaid 3, bridesmaid 4, where I go based on your name. So it's an appointment. And if you're late for your appointment, then you're making the entire bridal party late. And they have to sign my contract stating that everybody will be on time. And if they're not on time, then they get shortchanged. So I run a really tight ship because I don't want to be blamed to have a whole bridal party running late.
But it's so, I mean, if you talk with people, they will say like hair and makeup, it makes or breaks a day.
It totally does.
The timing. Plus, I mean, besides that, like the emotion behind, you want everyone to be happy and you don't want them to feel rushed.
And it is hard because when you're wrangling bridesmaids and they're just waking up, because we are your first vendor that you see, usually they were drinking the night before. Now they're waking up and they're having to wake up at around 7, 8 a.m. and they don't want to. And they're wanting their coffee. They're wanting to eat breakfast. They're wanting to just relax. And I'm like, you're sitting down because you're the first person in the chair. And if you weren't an early person, you should have said, hey, I don't want to go first. So you're sitting down, you're getting your makeup and your hair done, and that's just how it's going to be. So, and I have no problem saying that. And I think my brides appreciate that. And I tend to have my brides go in the middle. I don't want them to be the first, and I don't want them to be the last, because the last, there's always rushing out the door, getting their dresses. It's usually pretty chaotic, so I want her to be able to relax and enjoy her morning. So
yeah, and that's what we had done when my wife's friend Emily is a makeup artist, and she had offered to do the services for my wife, and like I think that was the same thing, that she had 5 or 6. We didn't do bridal parties, but she had friends that got it, and like it was like 1, 2. She did it because then we could go do some other stuff. We did our first look and whatever while other people, it's like not everyone needs to be.
And that's what I explained to them too, is if you need to have your first look done at 1 o'clock, well, we'll have you done by 11. You will not feel rushed. You'll still get to have your lunch. You get to leave. Go and take your pictures. Like, you don't have to wait around for your entire bridal party to be done, because usually they have their pictures done a little bit later. So, and photographers need that time to get those really amazing, stunning pictures. So, I mean, you have to have a well-coordinated schedule. And I think that is one of the things that kind of differentiates my business to other businesses, because I do take that time and I schedule it a month before, and I really want the wedding day to go smoothly. So
yeah, I mean, and you're understanding that we're all kind of in this piece together, right? That it's not like a separate, that it's your vendor team.
Exactly.
And so
exactly.
One thing I wanted to ask, I've noticed lately, grooms getting touch-ups.
Yes.
Is that, I don't know, is that a new thing? Is that?
Well, actually, it's funny. So I just got contacted on Wedding Wire from a barber who is wanting to do male grooming on site, just like the bridal party. He comes, he shaves, he cuts, he trims. I don't really know. They did it at our stylized shoot.
Okay. I didn't.
So, yeah.
I must have been off with the dress somewhere.
So, it is kind of becoming more popular, and I like it, because I get, these images back and the brides are looking beautiful and fantastic, and then the groom's hair is messy, or he just is not as put together. So I can't say I hate it, because I think it's kind of cool.
I know, or like if you have like some bald grooms, or they might get a little
shiny.
Yeah. And they don't want that shine.
Exactly. So I think, and it's important, and I think for men, I don't think that having makeup to cover is it, or I don't think that it's such a stigma anymore. So I think that, I've gotten asked plenty of times from grooms, hey, I, have some acne showing. Can you cover it? Yeah. You want to look good for your pictures. So
I'm just remember we had a wedding a couple weeks ago, and they did some rituals where the bride and groom were Chinese, and he came in and they had to answer like Q&A about like how did they meet or any, like, he really didn't know a lot. Like, it was really funny. But if for every question the groom got wrong, the bridesmaids put like lipstick and foundation and blush and stuff on them. And so this is not, we're talking a lot more refined, but I can't get the image of Jason and his groomsmen with like blue, blue blush and stuff.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny. So I want to talk about you. I want to talk about kind of how you got your start. You said you started with a photographer.
Yeah.
Take me back here.
So way back when, 11 years ago, I was in high school and I wanted to be an actress. And so in order to become an actress, you have to get your headshots done. And anyway, the photographer that was doing my headshots really liked how I did my makeup. And he wanted me to work with him to do all the other, kids that came in and got their headshots done, because he said they just don't have any direction. And like I said, my look is a lot more natural. I don't want to mask anyone's natural features. I want to bring them out and showcase them. And so honestly, that was how I got my start. He really took a chance on me and he got me into the industry. I had no desire to do makeup artistry, but I really fell in love with it. And I really fell in love with making people feel good about themselves and seeing them in a different light and just talking to them and hearing their story. And so I ended up getting my aesthetics license in 2007 from Clover Park Technical College. And I worked in the salon and spa industry for about 5 years. And it was really sad because both spas that I worked at ended up not making it. They closed down. And so I needed a place to have my clients come. And so I decided to work out of my home. My husband and I, in 2011, bought our house in Bonnie Lake, and we had all these extra spaces. We had 4 bedrooms, planning for a family. So I was just like, I'm just doing it. I'm just starting my business, and I'm just going to do facials. And that's where I thought it was going to be, is just facials, waxing. And then I met a photographer who needed a makeup artist for a shoot, and it was a vintage 1940s shoot. And so I, offered my services, and I got back into makeup again. I mean, skincare and makeup, they go together, but they're so different. And when you are in the facial and peel and waxing world, you're really not focusing on, makeup artistry. So it was really fun, and it got me back into the game, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And the hairstylist I work with, she worked at Jean Juarez, and she was like, I need a makeup artist for weddings. Do you want to help me out? And I was like, yeah, heck yeah. So I didn't really at that point in time, because again, doing weddings in a salon and spa is completely different than doing weddings on site. So on spa, the bridal party comes to you, you're using testers, you're not using your own kit. So, I mean, you don't have a lot of access to a lot of pro products at that time. So a lot of trial and error went into the business I'm running now. And I would say I had my kids 2013 and 2014, and they're 10 and a half months apart. So I kind of did the baby thing for a while and focused on them. And then probably about 4 years ago, when I, was able to get, a good stylist to work with me, and I really just kind of took it off and ran with it, did a lot of research on, what products to use for photography. When you're in the spa industry, you're using mineral makeup. So mineral makeup, it's just a powder makeup that you just sloosh on and put on with a brush. And it's not the best. It's not the best for photography. It's not the best for weddings. It's not very long lasting. So it took a lot of trial and error to figure out what products I wanted in my kit. And a lot of that, I did classes with Shin Medilli from Pacific Brides, and she's amazing and has a lot of knowledge. And so learned how to airbrush, and I mean, that was really how my business kind of got going. So
Yeah, it is fascinating because with makeup, with technology and photography and video, like I know from working in TV and like with airbrushing and stuff that like, when everything was like standard, and really poor quality, like you could get away with a lot more. And then like once all like the news stations, that it was like, because I even, and I'm sure it's not the case anymore, or maybe it is, but like I remember that they would sell like, HD TV makeup that like all these reporters would buy and kind of do themselves in the back because, now we're like, photos and stuff, like you see everything.
Yeah. And that's super important. And that's partially why I love working with photographers. I love doing the stylized shoots because I need to see not just on a bride's wedding day, but I need to see how my products work. Usually with a styled shoot, I'm on site. I'm seeing how they work with the sun, work with the photography exposure. When I'm working with photographers for a wedding day, I don't leave until I see a picture. So I literally am like walking around being like, hey, have you taken a picture of them yet? Because I need to see it. So I need to see if I need to fix anything. And there's a big, I don't know if you know anything about like the sparkly highlighters that a lot of brides are, they're like super, super sparkly. They have a lot of iridescent pigments in it. And so basically what happens is when these brides get their pictures taken, it creates like a big white like mark because they're highlighted to the point where it kind of the sun is bouncing off of them. So I make sure that when I use highlighting and contouring, it's just a matte finish. It's not anything with iridescent sparkliness because it looks better in photography. So that's one of the things that, you learn over time. And the sparkly pigments are always so pretty, but, and what brides gravitate towards, but that doesn't necessarily work for photography.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of makeup artists, when we're getting ready, do ask the photographer like, hey, snap a couple photos and then they look at it. Because it's like on your phone or to the eye, it's not the same as a nice, high pixel camera taking it and seeing the light. Talk about going to
Esthetician school.
Yes, I want to hear about that. I want to hear about the motivations behind that to do that.
So, honestly, it was just makeup artistry, and when you're working with a bunch of different skin types, skin tones, and acne skin, oily skin, dry skin, mature skin, your brain starts to think, and your brain is like, what can I do differently or better? And that was my motivation for aesthetic school. I needed a steady income. I got one facial before I went to aesthetic school. My husband bought me a day at Jean Juarez, and I really liked it, and I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what these machines were doing to me, and like the drive behind like these warm towel compresses that got put on my face. Have you ever had a facial before?
I can't say that.
No. Oh, well, it's super relaxing. You may like it. So anyway, I really fell in love with the industry and I wanted to know more. So I went through the aesthetics program. And honestly, it's like a big party for 6 months. Like girls just are getting waxed and getting body treatments and getting facials. And you learn a lot. You have to learn all about the skin anatomy. So the dermis, the epidermis, how hair grows. There's a lot that you learn in that time frame to help you figure out why does acne, where does sebum come from? Where does acne come from? Why are certain people oily? Why are certain people dry? So you learn a lot. And I got really fascinated with the skin anatomy, skin types, and figuring out what products will work best. And I really loved helping people with acne, specifically teenagers. So when I was doing my skin practice, I was working with a lot of teenagers who they're self-conscious. They have acne. They don't want to be in high school with acne. So I learned a lot about how to help them and do extraction safely and to where there's no scarring, learning about peels, learning about LED light. the skin industry changes rapidly. So there's always something to learn. And I still love to do continuing education. So.
No, it's interesting that we had an elopement yesterday, and I don't know if the bride, like, she's not like a super makeup-y person. I mean, she, but like, she was so happy with, she had a professional makeup artist, even though it was an elopement, which was great.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. And, she was so happy because, I think when somebody that's professional, like, what you're doing, obviously, but like, kind of how to highlight people and this certain, like my wife, like Dorothy, like does the same makeup every day, right?
Yeah.
And it's good, and I'm sure it's great, but like when exactly like, well, these things, this is what your skin, tone needs and skin type and, to make it look the best, right?
Yeah, and you do, and you learn that, and it's also not only that, like you said, Dorothy, she wears her makeup the same way every day, and it's actually a lot more scary for a woman to go to a makeup artist and they're in their routine. They know what they feel like looks good for their features. And so it's finding a balance of what still will make them feel comfortable, feel like themselves, and bring out what I feel like is best for their features. And that comes with getting to know my clients and getting to know what their skincare routine is. Are they minimalist? Do they wear a lot of makeup? Are they full coverage? What exactly goes into their beauty routine? And I tend to gravitate towards more of that, I usually just do a little bit of foundation, blush, and mascara. And, where when I get a girl that is like, I do full coverage and knows like all of the brands, I'm like, I'm like, okay, we can work with this, but it's still, I prefer to have somebody because I feel like I'm not going to be battling with them. And I feel like I'm not going to be having to explain my process, and my products are all pro products. So that means like I'm working with like HD foundations, I'm working with airbrush. So it's not what you're going to get at Ulta or Sephora. And so when you have a girl that's obsessed with like brand obsessed, she doesn't understand what RCMA foundation is and the benefits of a wax foundation compared to like a cream, so yeah, so that's just...
That was like over my head, that last But no, but I get what you mean that we're like, we attract the same kind of couples that want like, just like a nice video of their day where like if I have like a Hollywood producer come in and be like, what's in here? Like you want, it's what you're doing. And
exactly. And not every bride is going to be gravitated towards me. And even if they do, we may still not gel, we still may have, issues to work out, and that's totally okay because that's what's great about the wedding industry is there's so many vendors, and I know so many makeup artists who do a fantastic job at that total transformation, full beauty, full coverage, and I can refer it out. So that's partially why I do the consultations and take the time to get to know my clients, because I really do want to make sure that we are a good fit. And it's your wedding day. You want to make sure you like your vendors. You don't want to make sure that you're just hiring them because they're available or they're in the right budget. So I really do take that time to get to know them.
No, and it's, I've had weddings. I do like the more natural. I've shot some brides where you're like, that doesn't even look like you anymore, which is, fine. And and then they look, they're beautiful photos and stuff. But like, I've had some brides where like I've spent the day with them and then like I'll go back and look at like the getting ready or them like like maybe there's one, we don't try to shoot a lot of like pre-makeup, whatever, but you're like, like that's not even the same.
Well, see, and that's the other thing is I also tell my brides, like, you're seeing your guests who hopefully you've known for a long time. Like, hopefully you aren't just inviting people because you want a big, wedding. Hopefully you're inviting people who are family and know you, and they know you a certain way, and they want to see you shine, and you're also going to be seeing people. So yes, you want your pictures, your pictures to look amazing. You want your makeup to look amazing in pictures, but you also want to make your makeup look amazing when you're seeing people in person.
Well, and you'd like, your husband or wife or whoever to
Exactly. And
recognize
there's
you too.
so many times when a bride is like, oh, my husband doesn't like it when I wear makeup. And and it means like the full coverage, like the glam, the lashes and everything. And it's like, okay, yeah, I totally get that, because they don't want a surprise walking down the aisle. So
Am I at the right wedding?
yeah, exactly. So, and that's something I do reiterate to my brides is that you want to look gorgeous in pictures. And for a lot of brides, that means you got to put on a lot of makeup. And for me, I'm like, that's not necessarily true. With a little color correcting, a little airbrush foundation, just a little, lashes. I use cluster lashes. I don't use like the strips. You will still look gorgeous in pictures, but you will feel more comfortable because you look like you. And your guests will see you and they're not going to be seeing a ton of makeup on your face. So I think that that's super important and that's a fine balance. And I prefer to have my bride's skin look like skin. So and there is a fine balance between that.
Yeah, I've had some.
And I'm not saying that either way is bad.
No.
Both ways are gorgeous. It's just, I tend to attract a more natural bride.
Yeah, I've shot some, where you're like through the lens or you're shooting at a distance and it's, and then like you're up, 2 feet away talking to them and you're like, oh, there's a lot that like you
Yes.
can really see the makeup then.
Exactly. So, and I mean, I don't know if you've ever done, I think this might be a girl thing, but like celebrities makeup and then you can zoom in on the pictures and see like, or it could be a makeup artist thing. I don't know. But I like to zoom in and I can totally, like if I see a ton of makeup caked on, I'm like, oh, like that's what people, because when people are with you, they're like this close to you, they're hugging you and like that's what people see is the zoomed in picture of you.
They see that like 2 millimeters of like stuff.
Exactly. So and I think a lot of that has to do with my knowledge in skincare, skin prep. We get your skin prepped before the wedding. We take care of things prior to, so that way on the wedding day, your skin will be beautiful, flawless, and we don't have to do a lot of covering up. So.
Talk to me. So when you decided to kind of go back into weddings and kind of launch, this now with your makeup, any challenges, any difficulties early on?
So because I am a licensed esthetician, I'm not a licensed cosmetologist. One of the biggest hurdles was finding hairstylists because eventually my goal for the future is to do, work with the team and be able to provide more. And so really it's just finding a reliable stylist, and preferably it's one that will give up their Saturdays in a salon, one that will, come with me on site. And it was funny, I met Brenda at a wedding five seasons ago, and it just so happens we were working the same wedding, never met each other prior, found out she lives in Bonnie Lake, and we just meshed. And she contacted me for some skincare services, and we started trading for skincare for hair. So she cuts my hair, and we hit it off. She was really interested in doing bridal hair, and we just I call her my partner in hair. I mean, we're 2 separate businesses, so our billing systems are a little different, but we make it work. And it's nice to be able to provide brides both hair and makeup so they're not scrambling, and I know who I'm working with. So I would say that was probably one of the biggest hurdles. And then also I kind of did a name change. So my business name prior was Korrine's Facial and Waxing Studio. And I was like, that's not going to work. So, having to restructure your business. And then, if I do work with teams eventually in the future, I'm going to have to restructure again. But that was another business hurdle because I was like, do I put do I create a cute business name or do I just kind of keep it simple? And Gina from the Ground Up Floral, one of her comments when she saw my logo was she liked the fact that it has Korrine C, makeup artist and esthetician, because it shows that I did go to school and I do know what I'm doing, and it kind of makes me stand out than from other makeup artists, because I don't treat this as a hobby. This is, my full-time job besides taking care of my kids. So I, take it very, very seriously.
Yeah, whenever I hear about like other vendors, if they've done like a name change or a whatever, I'm always like, I would just be a nightmare. Like I couldn't imagine
Yeah, it was not fun. And I was just like, so I decided to keep it simple, but you get a new logo, you get, your business website, you had to,
But it's everything.
that.
It's Google, it's Yelp, it's
Yeah.
Wedding Wire, it's your business cards, your email, it's everything.
Yeah. So it was, so it was not fun. It took me a while, but I was, I'm glad I did it, because it kind of shows what I do more and where my business is heading. So, which I am very grateful for.
Talk to me about the first wedding that you were paid to do makeup or hair and makeup in a professional setting that wasn't like a friend.
So the first gig that I got paid, it was probably in like 2012. And I was working with my friend Missy, who worked at Jean Juarez, and I charged $50 a person, which I don't anymore. I learned my lesson. Weddings are hard work. You deserve to get paid what you're worth. And actually, it went really well. The bridesmaids were great. I didn't have a timeline. I was just free for all. I was pregnant, so I was, it was very different than how I run things now. But it taught me a lot. The products that I were using was probably not what I would have chosen now. But when you're not really in that industry as long as you should be, and you're like, you think you can do it. So, but it lasted. She gave me a great review. She was super sweet. She loved everything. We got them done a little behind. I was that artist that got them done, half hour, 45 minutes late. And I learned my lesson from that too. And yeah, but overall, I'd say it was a really good first wedding. For sure.
It is, funny to look back, and be like, what, like all the things like I didn't know, or like, you said like my first wedding, like I didn't have a timeline, like I didn't know, I just knew the venue and
you're
what
just
time
like, I'm
to
just
show
gonna go
up.
shoot,
So that's funny.
Yeah, it's you learn a lot, and I learned a lot about different skin types, and I mean, in my kit now, I have cream foundations, I have airbrush foundations, I have a liquid foundation. So like I have foundations that work with every single skin type and skin tone. Where before I just had a liquid foundation, I was good to go. I got it at Sally's Beauty Supply, and I thought, and I was like, I can do this. I had no idea what I was doing. So brushes, had no idea that, I needed, I got my brushes at Sally's Beauty Supply. So, I mean, now my brush kit is like insane, but, had, no idea what a pro brush was at that time, even though you went through aesthetic school, like the brushes they give you, like the makeup they give you is just mineral makeup, and it's, what salons use, and the brushes are not so great. And so I had to learn all of that on my own.
What are some common mistakes, education moments with, brides or bridal parties or grooms or whatever, but like things that you see a lot right now in the industry that, are like easy corrections or things, words of advice that way?
So I would say for the most part, trial runs. Usually when a bride does a trial run, they expect it to be perfect with no tweaking. And I think that's a very unrealistic expectation, because usually after a trial run, I'm taking their pictures in with my makeup light, I'm taking pictures in natural light, I'm taking pictures in daylight. And so I think that, and then I see things I want to tweak. So I think that brides have to realize that they need open communication with their makeup artist and their hairstylist, and that it's just makeup. Like, it can be taken off. It can be, we can, if we have to redo an eyeliner line, if you want it thicker. I mean, these aren't make or break type of situations, but I had a bride who got 5 trial runs prior to me, and she was just unsatisfied with all of them. And I'm like, at what point do you have to realize that it's probably either A, you're not hiring the right people, or B, you're not communicating well? And her looks that she was wanting was completely different from what she is. So like when I refer brides to Pinterest, I say, choose people that look like you, have similar face shape, have similar eye color. Don't be just choosing pictures because you think they're pretty. So like if I have a girl who has red hair and freckles, Dimes to Donuts, she comes in with like a Kim Kardashian picture that she wants recreated. And I'm like, that's just not realistic. That's not what you look like in any way, shape, or form. Look at people with red hair and freckles, and it'll be a little bit more realistic. And so I feel like brides also have to realize that as makeup artists, we all specialize in different areas. And that just because you're hiring a makeup artist doesn't mean that we all are specializing in that super high glam, or that the super high glam artists are specializing in natural looks. We all specialize in different things, and you have to go with somebody who you're attracted to their portfolio first.
Yeah, that's 2 points. One, totally like knowing what like kind of your route is. Like I've had people that like have emailed me like, hey, we need to do this, or like we want to do like a whiteboard animation video. And I'm like, that's not like, I just can't, like I could probably figure it out, but I don't think you want that. B, I think it's a great point about like, it is like a trial. Because I do think like even Dorothy, when she had trouble finding the hair to get her hair done. And because you go in and you get it and she'd be like, oh, I hate this. Like, that's how it's going to be. It's like, well, no, that's not, like, it doesn't need to be that way. Like, you need to
communicate and just say, hey, we had a bride who she chose a style that was like super, super curly in the back. And it was really, really pretty. But her dress was super structured and it was very, very modern. And I kept telling her, I was like, it's like, I really think that you should do something sleek, something that's super, modern, not necessarily just a really pretty curly updo. And so anyway, she did it and she's like, it just didn't work with my dress. It was not what I was expecting. So she came back in for another hair trial. We did the super sleek, modern updo. She cried. She loved it so much. She was like, I should have just listened to you, but I saw this picture. I thought it was really pretty. And that's the other thing is like, you can go based off of a picture, but what you're seeing on Pinterest is usually like a lot of extensions. I mean, there's a lot more work to it than just putting your hair back and curly. If it's like a super thick updo, like the braids that are really popular that are super thick, like that takes time and that takes extensions and that takes, a lot longer to figure out than just let's curl your hair and pull it back in a braid. So I think that comes with, again, communication, because if I can meet with them ahead of time and they show me what they're wanting and I can see their hair type and be like, are you prepared to spend about $400 in extensions prior to getting your hair done? And either A, they're like, heck yeah, or B, they're like, let's find a new look. So there's a lot more to it, and that's why you need to find somebody who knows what they're doing and not just, oh, well, I found this girl, she's super cheap, or my friend can do it. And I mean, we've done bridal parties where some of the bridesmaids don't want their hair done and they're doing it themselves, and it's like bobby pins are sticking out. It just doesn't look as structured and it doesn't match the rest of the bridal party. So, and I think that's something that brides need to take into consideration too.
Yeah, because I saw, I think just recently online, somebody had posted like, oh, I had my hair or, my makeup trial and it was a disaster and I need somebody else. And like even people were commenting on there like, well, have you had this conversation? And it might, like you said, it might just be like a gel, they didn't gel with them, but it could just be that that they thought they were doing. I mean, people, you do what you think. And then if it didn't work out,
and it usually is like something like they want like a lighter shimmer color on the inner lid, or the liner wasn't as thick as what they want. I mean, these are like super minuscule, easy changes to make. And usually it's because they're afraid to hurt people's feelings. Like I had a bride, I think it was like 3 seasons ago, who she was really stuck on like that Kim Kardashian look, and she really wanted the highlighting and the contouring. And so we, are doing it, and it just wasn't right. And so I think I added more blush than bronzer, and she really wanted a bronzier look. And so instead of telling me that, she told her mom. Well, thankfully I'm good friends with her mom, because her mom called me and she was like, hey, can she come in and just get more bronzer? And I was like, yeah. Did more bronzer. She's like, I didn't think you could do this. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. And the day of her wedding, her other attendants went someplace else to get their makeup done. And anyway, they came in and look, shimmer highlight that looks super white, the really super dark contour line that you can still see that looks like almost gray. I don't know if you've seen
it.
Yeah, and like the really matte dry lips. And I was like, so when you're talking highlighting and contouring to a makeup artist, like that will be what you get. When you're wanting just your facial structure just to be a little bit more sculpted with a little bit more bronzer, this is what you get. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad, because she's like, that's who I was going to go to if I couldn't figure it out with you. And so it's like, it's super easy changes, and communication is key.
Yeah, I mean, we're, people are professionals, and like they get it, and like, it's a job. And I think like, early on, I don't know, I know I personally like struggled with that a little bit, where, I'm doing, what I think, and if somebody isn't happy, and like you get your feelings a little bit, you get a little upset. But like people that do this for a living and kind of know, and like you get it. And like I do what I think, and if you don't like it, and it's like, it doesn't, it's ultimately like you're the client.
It's your decision. And so, I mean, and I'm super flexible, and like I tell my brides, you're not going to hurt my feelings. It's not my face. It's not my wedding day. Like you're not going to hurt my feelings if you want something changed. And so when I work with my brides, I also have them sitting in front of a mirror, which a lot of other places don't. They usually have them off to the side, but that's because I want them to see the process too. And so I want them to see, like, if they're noticing something that I'm doing and they're like, oh, that's not really how I do it, or I usually like it like this. I'm like, okay, let's fix it, So I feel like there's just more transparency, and I'm personally okay with my trial runs going a little bit longer if it means that we're going to be on the same page for the wedding day. So that to me is not like a big deal. I feel like that's part of my job, is to figure it out and to get the look that you want. And so I feel like, communication with that and looking in the mirror and seeing yourself while you're getting ready, I think is very important.
I think that's great. I think that I do see a lot like that, like makeup artists like to have that big reveal, and they get to do that. But I think like you might lose that 2-second thing that doesn't really matter anyway, but you get a lot more seeing the process. I think that's fascinating.
There's more transparency. So, and especially because I also don't want to put a full face on, them see themselves, and then like, oh, I went where I could solve that problem well ahead of,
we could have fixed it 30 minutes ago. Yeah,
exactly. So that's kind of how I run things, and to me, it doesn't make any difference. Like the big reveal, that's not what the trial run's for. The trial run's for to figure out what you want to look like on your wedding day. The big reveal can be when you put your wedding dress on, and that's the big reveal. And I also recommend my brides to try on their wedding dresses on the trial run. And I do that because then they can see, because when you have a full face on and your hair's up and then you're in plain clothes, it's just different. Like you're just like, I feel awkward. I don't feel like myself. I still feel weird, but I'm like, go home, put your dress on, go to your bridal shop, put your dress on, schedule your trial run when you can do your fitting. And it like makes sense. Like they're like, oh my gosh, like it looked beautiful. Everything worked out. And I thought it was maybe a little bit too much or not enough, but it was perfect. And so that is what I recommend to my brides.
Yeah, I also like do lots of things in your dress, like hair, makeup, sit
Run,
down, try to
eat.
dance. Like I had a bride a week or two ago. She's like, "Oh, I don't even know if I can sit in this dress." Like, you're gonna sit, put your makeup on, like, be in it for more than 30 seconds. Like,
Yeah.
see
if it's uncomfortable.
Dorothy, you didn't try to dance before our wedding, and she's like, "Well, I go, you didn't even just do a circle, like,
No.
they don't, but try, live in your dress for.
That's a good point, because I didn't do that, and I was so uncomfortable on my wedding day. Like, it was super hot. We got married August 1st, and it was like a 93-degree day, and my dress was long, and I wanted a short dress, but the ladies at the shop like talked me into a long dress, and I was suffocating. So definitely try on your dress for longer than like walk around the store, like sit down in the store.
Who did your makeup?
I did. Yeah, I did my entire bridal party too. So when, like I said, before we started this, when we got married, my husband got laid off. So, our wedding budget kind of took a dive. So we ended up getting married at my aunt's property. We got married in the church, had the reception at my aunt's property. It was a potluck. It was super duper fun, big family party. But we just couldn't afford the hair and makeup. And I, did it. And my cousin worked at Jean, so she did our hair. So
did that work out? Were you able to get everything done?
Yeah. And I was 21. So I was young when I got married. So, and weddings, we were going on 9 years. Weddings 9 years ago were so different from weddings today. So it wasn't as important. Like, I didn't know anybody who got hair and makeup done at their wedding. So, except for one cousin. And so it just wasn't like that big of a deal to me, I think. So
one last thing I want to make sure we touch on before I let you go, because I see it all the time with makeup people talking about making sure people book ahead of time. This isn't like a 1 month out. Oh, I need to book this. This is like a year out with all your people. Feelings on that?
So I suggest brides to book out at least 6 to 9 months in advance. I am already starting to book for 2019. So, I always say it's better to kind of have your vendors than not have your vendors. So I say 6 to 9 months, because I feel bad. I really do when I get a bride contacting me and she's like, and I have like one weekend open a month that I haven't booked a wedding. And it's like, that, I take those. I take those and I breathe. So, it's sad when they come and they're like, I messed up. I should have booked hair and makeup a month ago, or it just didn't, So 6 to 9 months at least. And I'd say that's probably par for the course for like most hair and makeup vendors. Yeah,
there's nothing more not frustrating but sad when like I'll get an email like, we were thinking about like potentially maybe having a videographer on June 30th, and you're like, yeah, that's been booked for a year.
Exactly.
And they're like just broaching the idea of it, or like just reaching out.
Well, and I see it all the time. Oh, my fiance and I, we decided to finally get a videographer. So who's open? Oh, also we have like a $400 budget. Like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's about, but that's something I've been seeing a lot lately. And that's the same with hair and makeup. Oh, I'm looking for last minute hair and makeup. I think one girl, she just posted, I forgot about myself and I have 2 weeks before my wedding. And
don't forget about yourself.
Who's open for hair and makeup? And it's like, maybe, like,
and it's always a really busy date too. It's always like,
depending on the bridal party size, I can maybe swing it, and usually they're also like they want a lower budget. They want, they ask for a lot. So, there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah.
It's good. Mm-hmm. This has been so nice to chat with you. I really appreciate it. I feel like the wait was worth it. I think this has been a very educational talk. If people want to learn more about you, your company, and hair and makeup services, what would you have them do?
Go to www.KorrineCmakeupandskin.com. So thanks, Reed.
No, thank you so much. This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.
Thank you.